Okay, we're continuing in Shari Teshuva. We're in the 10th principle, Ha'ikra Asiri, in the middle of Os or Sif Lamed Hey, on page 48, 49 in the Feldheim edition. And the 10th principle, which we began last week, is to correct your activities in areas where you have done things incorrectly. With the same body part that did an Avera, you should now do a mitzvah with that body part. And he gave a few examples, and we discussed the idea of Rachav. We discussed this at great length. So we're in the 5th line in this principle. Od Amru, the rabbis also said, Imosiso chavilo shel averos, if you've done a bundle of averos. So what do you do to compensate for that? Asay kenegdam chavilas shel mitzvahs. So do bundles and bundles of mitzvahs. Raglayim emaros lorutz l'ro. If your feet were run to do bad things, then you ratzos lidvar mitzvah. They should be running to do mitzvahs. Lashon shaker. If your tongue was speaking false things, then emes yega chiko. Upiv yiftach b'chachma v'seres chesed al l'shonei. Then truth should come from your palate. Your lips should open up with wisdom, and there should be Torah of kindness on your tongue. So now you're using the same body part for the right thing, as he said before. Yadayim shoiv chisdam, your hands spilled blood. You killed people, chas v'shalom. Then open up your hand and give to the poor. Einayim ramos, you have lofty, arrogant eyes. Yedaka v'shachenayim, you should now have broken and lowered eyes. Liv choresh machshavos oven, your heart is plowing up thoughts of averas. You have big premeditations before you do averos. So then, belibo yitzvot imrei Torah, in your heart, in the depths should be deep words of Torah. V'hiyagos libo tvunas, in your heart should be involved with deep spiritual thoughts. And finally, mishalech, all examples here. Mishalech medanim ben achim, if you are sending, discord between brothers, you created strife amongst people. Then yevakei shalom v'rifeu, you should seek out peace and chase after it. So when you look at all these examples that Rabbeinu Yonah is bringing over here, what is he suggesting? He's saying that really the correct potential was always there. That same hand that spilled blood really always had the potential of bringing life to another person. But if it's misdirected, then it destroys other people. So it's not just a question in Teshuva of making a dramatic change in my life. Rather, that very organ that functioned in one way is not really the definition of its potential up to this point in time. The definition of the potential was really the exact opposite of what was being done. And this, again, is a trap that the Baal Teshuva should never fall into. A Baal Teshuva could walk around with the wrong psyche, thinking that what he is and what his potential, it's one thing, and it's not acceptable because the behavior isn't good. But that's not correct. The correct psyche is that the wrong behavior of the Baal Teshuva was not an indication of what his real potential was. It's an indication of misdirected potential. But ultimately, what he will correct himself for was what he was always intended to be, and what he always was created to be, and was ultimately the use of the machinery that was given to him. So here's the point. The Baal Teshuva, when he's in the point of Teshuva now, shouldn't view his post-Teshuva state as the artificial state of existence, as the temporary state of existence. No, the truth is before, that's when he was in the artificial state of existence. Now he's in the permanent, authentic state of existence. I'm really a killer. The fact I did a little chesed, that's not who I am. No. The chesed that you're doing, that's who you are. The killer was not who you were. That's what he's telling him, and that's the whole point of doing tshuva in the very thing that you did the Aveira in. So that shows that really the area you did Aveira really was never the area that was meant to be done in that area. So that's always the problem. The person says, nah, I'm really not such a good person. I'm really not a spiritual person. And what's your proof? Because look at all the terrible things I'm doing. But that's not who you are. That's taking what really should be good coming from these areas, and you've misdirected it. So now let's find a way to do it in the right way, and now you're doing it in the right way, and that was the way it was always intended to be. And the wrong way was never the way that was intended to be used. That only can happen if you're mamish taking that very body organ and you're using it the way it's supposed to be used. And then you can understand that that's the way it was always intended to be used. Okay, that's the 10th principle, and we move on to the next one. Lamed Vav, Ha'ikar ha'chadashor. The 11th principle is Chibus Drachav. Chipus Drachav. Investigating your path. Okay, investigating the past. It's similar to the concept that we refer to as Cheshbon HaNefesh, spiritual accounting. Kenyan Shenemar, and what's the source of this? It's in the book of Eicha, which says, Nach besod derachenu. Let us investigate our ways, v'nachkora, and analyze them, and then finally, v'nashuva ad Hashem, and we'll be able to return to Hashem. So, what's the concept behind this principle? Is that very often everything that a person does in their life gets done or doesn't get done simply because there's a certain degree of thoughtlessness. We don't think. In other words, not everything that we do we do with a full consciousness and with a tremendous degree of awareness. There's a lot of things we do in a very thoughtless kind of way without even thinking in any particular direction. And therefore a person who's trying to make an authentic return to Hashem, you got to develop an ability to have this chipus drachav, to put your thoughts, into your actions. In other words, before you do something, you're thinking about what you're doing. Ultimately, for the Baal Teshuva, this aspect of chipus drachav means that he has to concentrate on the particular paths that the person is taking in life. Now there's 2 points to this. The first point is to train yourself and to concentrate on what you've done. To think about something that you've done and analyze it. And this could be a very hard thing to do. Because a person might say, listen, what's done is done. Let's get on to the next thing. I don't have patience for this. It's the same reason why people don't have patience to Chazara when we learn. I learned it already, why should I review it? Why should you review it? Because you think you understand what you learned? What do you mean? I learned it once. Once is nothing. So you got to go it over and over and over until you really understand it. It's the same idea. If we've done something in the past, you got to go back and analyze. Well, I've done it. Let's go on to the next thing. Well, hold on. Let's really analyze what is it that you actually did. Right? If there's no process of chipus drachav, if there's no process of searching one's ways and investigating the past, then it's going to be very difficult for the person to develop and grow. The person has to give themselves time to grow. And that happens through analyzing what's happened in the past. No different than if you want to, you see our kids, they study for tests. They want to get good marks on their tests. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of controlled study habits. You have to pace yourself. You have to be able to sit down and, ignore other exciting things and stay focused on the task over there. So tshuva is no different than that. It needs a lot of time, of thought and analysis. What happened? Why did it happen? What elements of what happened were good and what elements that happened were not good. And it has to have a lot of time. And listen, we've already gone through 10 steps of the tshuva process. We're in the 11th step now. So Rabbeinu Yonah is saying something that's very fundamental to the quality, to everything that we've learned up to this point. And that means what? That there has to be thought behind all of it. And to the degree that there's thought and analysis behind what's happened, then the outgrowth will be all these steps that we've already had will be very meaningful. There'll be a meaningful regret. There'll be a meaningful breaking and isolation of gratifying one's physical desires. a meaningful way of feeling a certain amount of shame and discomfort and concern about what happened because you've really investigated the way. If you say, oh, yeah, I've probably done a lot of Averis this year. Okay, I feel sorry about them. How meaningful can it be? You have to really look at each activity and say, listen, when I spoke Lashon Hara, let's look into why I spoke the Lashon Hara, how ugly the Lashon Hara was. Really get into it, you really see, wow, I did something really bad. Then the regret and the discomfort and the shame and all those things really become much more meaningful. And that's what the prophet Yirmiyahu is scolding the Jewish people often. He says they never gave themselves the time to think about what they're doing and why they're doing. So that's aspect number one. Aspect number two, he calls this, Rabbi Yonah calls this chipus drachav, investigating drachav, his path. He doesn't call it chipus masov, investigating one's actions. Why doesn't he call investigating one's actions? Are we investigating our actions? Yes, of course, that's part of the package. But why does he call it chipus drachav? Because, sometimes one individual action can't always go under the correct scrutiny that you might be able to give it if you look at a more holistic view. Sometimes, one particular action, when you investigate one action, it may not necessarily tell the whole story of what's going on. But when you have a whole host of actions and you start putting them together, then it creates a pattern of life. So Rabbeinu Yonah is saying, aside from the analysis that you give to particular activities, of course you do analyze every activity, but you have to analyze the composite of one's activities. Because really it's the composite of the activities together that create a certain lifestyle. I'll give you a simple example, right? Taking your child to hockey once a week, that in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Your kid wants to play hockey, you want to take him, you carpool him and you take him to hockey and watch him play hockey for an hour. There's nothing wrong with that. You can't say, oh, you have to do tshuva on that, right? But what if you have 3 different kids? Well, no one would have 3 kids in this example. 2 kids in select hockey, which means on Sunday and Tuesday and Thursday, because select has to play at least 3 times a week, I take this son to this hockey thing. And then Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, Saturday, I take him to that select one. So when do you have time to learn any Torah, mister? What do you mean I have to take them to hockey? I say, well, I don't understand. You have to learn Torah too, don't you? You have to be a good father, take them to hockey. See, now you take the composite, and then you find out, the guy has no time. And what about Sunday? Oh, Sunday, I have to watch the kids. What about Motzei Shabbos? Motzei Shabbos is my date night. So when are you going to learn? What do you mean when am I going to learn? I got all these other things. So now we're talking about a lifestyle. It's a derech. Your derech is you don't learn. Finished. It's not that your derech is you're such a good father. Your derech is you don't learn. Right? So you can't compare the guy who takes once a week, taking the kid to hockey, fine. But it becomes a composite. There's certain people, they don't go to shul in a minyan, period. But, why he didn't go this day? Well, this day I had to do this carpool, and this day I had to do this, and this, that. Every day there's always an excuse. So if you're looking at one isolated thing, so, well, he had an excuse. He had to do carpool on Monday. And what about Tuesday? I have to exercise. It's a mitzvah. I go early in the morning to exercise. It's the only time I can get away to exercise because he's taking the kids to hockey every night. You understand? So it becomes a lifestyle where you have to analyze. That's chipus drachav. Let's take a look at the path you've chosen in your life. Is this a path towards greatness or a path towards nothing? So at the end of the day, you're a good father because you take the kid to play hockey 3 times a week. That makes you a good father. Do you ever go over the Gemara with your kid? Well, I don't send them to school where they learn Gemara. Oh, okay. I guess you don't have to learn Gemara with your kid. Right? It's a lifestyle. It's a pattern that's developed. And that needs the biggest thought. Where is your life taking you? Right? At the end of the day, right? Come back to the 10 questions on the final exam. Where does it say, you're going to be asked how much hockey you played. When someone says, how good of a hockey player were you? Based on that, you're going to go to Olam Haba. Right? How good of a father taking your kid to hockey were you? That's going to take you to Olam Haba. It isn't going to get you very far. So that path is going to be chipus the path. So on the one hand, every incident has to be investigated, and then in this global sense, we take the whole package, and where's the package taking you? And it's pretty easy to tell. Just compare where you were a year ago today to where you are today, and you see, if you haven't gotten any further, you can see the path is not a great path. You say to yourself, okay, is my davening any better? Is my learning any better? Is my level of chesed any better? And say, no, it's about the same. I guess you haven't been on any path yet. Right? So, but I still do the same thing for the last 5 years. Every night we take the kids out to hockey. Every night we're doing it. Every night. So that becomes the chipus drachav that he's talking about. Now, he's going to get into detail and say why this is so important, although we've already explained it, but he's going to say 3 particular areas where chipus drachav comes into play. And you do this for 3 reasons. There's 3 primary reasons for doing this. Number 1, Number 1 is to remember the averis you did, so then you could do vidui on them. You could do confession on them. Ki havidu me'ikare hakapara. Because vidui is one of the most of the fundamentals of kapara, of atonement, which vidui is coming up in a couple more sections over here. There's the 3 fundamental aspects of tshuva, then it gets expanded into 20. But vidui is critical. How can you do vidui if you don't remember what you did wrong? Now, human nature is wonderful. It has the quality of having a tremendous ability to forget or to lower the degree of any particular action that you do. The moment something's done, by the fact that it's done, so if it's hard to live with what I've done, or if it represents a certain degree of failure in my life, that immediately is put into some area of forgetfulness, or it wasn't so bad because of X, Y, and Z, and the human mind tends to want to dismiss these types of things. Puts it in the human background as much as possible, and it's amazing. A month later, you don't remember you've done it. It's such a wonderful thing, this ability to forget. Tremendous capacity to want to forget and to cover up the things that were done. So chipus drachav is where the person purposely makes himself face that which he would like to forget. You have to investigate the past and take yourself to task to count for the time that you did what you did and what you were doing in that time. And if you can't give yourself the time to remember what you did with your time in the past, so then obviously you probably aren't accomplishing very much. Okay? So, that's why it's always a good idea. If people could do this, it would be amazing. Just, you should every night write down all your averos. And you'll see what kind of book you'll have by the time you come to Yom Kippur. If you spend 5 minutes, what your averos were, you'll see. It won't be an empty page. It won't be an empty page. That's chipus drachav. That's what all the behavioralists will tell you. If you want to lose weight, what's the first thing they tell you to do? Write down what you eat. Why should I? You'll see. I don't eat very much. You watch and see how much you eat. Also, when you write it down, you realize, wow, I never realized I eat that much. That's the first thing. It's okay. Let's just write down the averos. You'll see. You probably have more averos than as much food you're overeating. If you go through, you'll see. I don't have to go into detail. I think people understand what the point is over here, right? But some people have in their minds, they have this idea in their minds. Listen, why do we have to go through all the particulars? I know how I behaved in a general way last week or last month, and I know it wasn't good. I know it wasn't so good. I'm not going to fool myself. I know I wasn't learning so much. I wasn't this so much. So why do I get picky about it? I know I wasn't good, and I'll change. Yeah, you will? Yeah. What are you going to change? I don't know exactly. But the overall picture of things, I'll change. That's not going to work. It's It's not going to work. The value of chipush drachov is to say that the process of tshuva cannot rely on generalities. Because when you did the things wrong, you didn't do things wrong in a general way. You did things wrong in a very particular way. You never. In general, I did averis. I'm going to, in general. Yesterday, I in general did an aver. You didn't do it in general. You either hurt your spouse's feelings. That's not general. That's very particular. You either did not make brachas many times today. That's very particular, and there's probably reasons why you didn't. So the way they got done were done in a very particular way. So therefore, the way of undoing those particular things has to be in a particular process as well. And that's what Rabbi Yonah says. Ki havidui me'ikori ha'kapara. Confession is one of the integral parts of kapara. So what is he saying that vidui does? What's vidui? Vidui is you spell out what you've done wrong. What would the person not be doing if he would just be doing things in a general way? Right? He would be missing the spelling out of the particular things. So why do I have to spell it out? Why do I spell it if I know that in general, I've been bad? Because the confession is an integral part of the kapara. The activities were done in a particular way, and the process, how you undo it, has to be done in a particular way. I mean, in general, on Yom Kippur, you see all these general things. They're kind of general, because the rabbis can only give you general things. But there are areas where you're supposed to get particular. In other words, these are 22 or how many general areas, whatever. The general area of zilzul horim umorim, not treating your parents with respect. That's a general. Now you got to get into exactly how do you not treat your parents with respect. How to exactly spell out in your life. When you said exactly, I remember when my father asked me to do that, I totally ignored what he wanted, what he asked. And I made it as if I didn't even hear what he said. Or he gave an opinion and I just poo-pooed it away and I thought it wasn't of any value. And now you get very particular about what you do. Then it creates a different intensity to how you feel about the tshuva process there. And you have specific actions to focus on to say the vidui for. And then you will feel a lot worse and you'll be doing more tshuva. So that's point number one. That's point number one, is to really know what you got to do tshuva for. And that only happens when you investigate individual action, you investigate the overall direction. And so the overall direction, I can see where this direction is taking me, and you know exactly what's coming out of this overall direction, then I've got to change that overall direction too. So that's the first point. Vasheni, the second point, Laman yeda kamalo avonos l'chatos v'yosef likana. Then you're going to know how many averis you have, and you're going to become a lot more humble. Okay? Usually people, averis happen to a great degree is because we have a certain degree of arrogance in our lives, right? And we have a certain ego, and when you have that way, then you're treating mitzvahs in a certain way. If you have a big ego, then I can basically do what I want. But if you do a real good investigation of your ways, and you see how many averis you do, so that's going to give you a much greater appreciation of exactly who you are, and there's not that much to be so arrogant about. I'm a fine, upstanding model Jew, and therefore I could do a lot of things the way I want to do them. Well, at the end of the day, you see, I did another 50 averis today. For the week it's already been 600 for the week. She says, I don't know why I think I'm such a great guy. I've got a lot to work on, and that humility alone is a very critical factor in being able to be the best Jew you could be. So that's number two. V'hashlishi, and the third point is, even though he's accepted upon himself to leave all sins, right up to this point where there's a ziva sachet, you need to know the things that you sinned. Why? So you can make fences around them. Going on to the next page. So you could take extra precaution to guard yourself from the ambushes of the Yetzer Hara. Because your soul is more likely to fall again in these areas, since you've already made them light in your eyes by the fact that you already sinned in them, but you already shown a weakness in this area. And your soul is sick in these areas. When a sick person wants to get better, begins to get better and begins to convalesce, he has to be careful in many areas that he will not come back to his sickness. So what he's saying over here is, the third point is that when a person does something wrong and you're trying to change all that, you have to realize there was a reason why you did what you did wrong. There's a particular weakness in an area in which, because if you did an Avera, that means, you're weighing, the will of Hashem versus my desire to do this, and guess what? My desire to do this was much stronger than listening to the will of Hashem. So that is a weakness you have in your life. So now, and that's a sickness. That's a sickness. So now you're doing Teshuva. I'm never going to do it again. But you have to realize what was the area of sickness, because that area is the one that's going to pop back up in your life quicker than anything else. The person got has a heart attack, right? So whatever, he's starting to recover, he doesn't start, running marathons. You got to be careful. Certain things are going to bring a certain amount of stress or whatever, and can bring on the sickness again. So you've got to realize, if I spell out exactly what I did wrong, not just say, I was terrible last year, I'm going to be much better this year. Yeah, so you're going to be much better. What areas are you going to be careful about? I don't know, in everything I'm going to be much better. I'm going to be careful about everything. That doesn't cut it. If you know, for example, last year, if you count it down, you know how many times I made it to Minyan on time last year? 4 times. You counted it. 4 times I made it to Minyan. That means that, like, 100 times I came late, and another 100 times I didn't show up at all. Whatever it is. So you got to say, this is a problem area. I only came to Minyan on time 4 times. So now I'm doing Teshuva. I'm going much better. How are you going to be much better? Well, now 4 times only came. We got to do something to make sure it's going to work much better this year. So what am I going to do to make sure that I'm on time for me? Okay, now start putting in some safeguards. What are the safeguards? I'm going to have the rabbi call me up a half an hour before I'm supposed to be in Shul, and he'll be happy to do that. Not any problem. He'll call me up a half an hour, and I have to call him back 10 minutes later to make sure that I'm ready out of bed and dressed, and then I know I'll be okay. That'll be a wonderful safeguard. If anybody called me and wanted me to do that, I'd be glad to help them. And that way for sure you'll be a Minyan. It's not a question. You put a safeguard in, because that's the area I'm weak in, because usually when I wake up, it's not like the guy doesn't set the alarm almost every day. He just hits the snooze button and goes to sleep. And by the time he realizes it's too late. So see, you got to realize where the area of weakness is, so he can come back. So those are the 3 aspects of why it's so important for Chipus Rachav. Again, number 1, because now you'll remember exactly in detail the things that are wrong. Number 2, it will humble you to realize how many things you've done wrong. And number 3, to know which areas to make protection that you don't fall back into that area. Okay, we're moving along. These pratim go a little quicker now. Lamed Zayin, Ha'ikar HaShnei-Masar, the 12th principle. A person has to investigate and know and recognize the depths and the magnitude of the punishments that are going to come for all the averas that you do. So you've got to face the gravity of what you've done, and you can't accomplish it unless you see how the Torah sees it. You can never judge the severity of an action as much as the Torah can. So what did I do so bad? I do so bad. I spoke some Lashon Hara. Okay, it wasn't so bad. So Chazal say, Abal Lashon Hara, Ein lo chelek l'olam haba, you have no portion of the world to come. What? What do you mean I have no portion? You're not getting in. What do you mean I'm not getting in? Just because I said the guy was stupid and I insulted him, and when I'm on the phone and I talk badly about some people, you aren't going into Olam Haba. What do you mean? Well, that's what the Torah says. Chazal say, Ein lo chelek l'olam haba. You're not going to be there. Hashem's not interested in you. What do you mean he's not interested in me? He hates you. What do you mean he hates me? You talk bad about his kids. Yeah, I remember when I talked bad about a certain guy, the man was very mad at me for a long time. Well, that's what Hashem feels about you. You start making it. No, this is real. It's like real. It has real consequences, and the worse the aver, the worse the consequence. So you realize, so this is serious business, and that's the whole point. To realize how serious it is when you realize the consequences that are there. If a person's not careful in Taras HaMishpacha, the punishment is kares. He's spiritually cut off from Hashem. Finished. It's not like, well, he's a nice guy, and so we just take off a few points. It's not take off a few points. You have kares. That's it. So all of a sudden, it'll have a lot more power to realize this is very serious. I have to really stop. Just like people. You see, people were lining up for hours yesterday. Lining for hours is to take a vaccine. That number one, they don't even know if it'll help. They don't even know if it will hurt. Right? But one thing they know, a 13-year-old kid died from it. They think, it's a wonderful way the media can play everything, because now they have there was nothing to report the last couple of weeks. So now it's got, what to write about, what to talk about. People listen. So you have to. I'm not saying it might not be dangerous, but one thing's sure, it can't be as bad as the media reports it. It can never be as bad as the report. But what do you see? Oh, if people think it's serious, I have to do something. It's really serious. It's really serious. You could die from this. So we'll wait 5 hours in line to get the shot. And people are so angry and this and that. What do you expect? 1 million people want to get a shot in the same day. You don't think you're going to have to wait in line? I can't understand the psyche of people. You don't know there's 2.5 million people in Toronto alone. They all want to get inoculated in one day. It's not going to. But you see, they're telling us, you see a kid died from it. Then I got to really do what I can to protect myself. So Hashem says, listen, there's a virus you're doing that there's a big impact is going to happen on you. So maybe you have to inoculate yourself against that too. And you got to stop that. So if you realize how bad it is, only after that kid died, people got into the panic. To be sure, if they wouldn't have reported that incident, okay, I'll get it in a few weeks. It's not going to matter. And then they don't get it. But that was like, mamish, it couldn't be better timing. The kid died. Do they really know he died from the swine flu? I think it would take longer for us to do testing to know which strain of a virus it was, right? But boom, everybody's there because you're going to die from it. So if Chazal say, if the rabbis say, if the Torah says, you do a certain thing, you should surely die for this. It's a terrible crime. You're not going to get Olam Haba for this. It's whoa. I got to get out of this place as fast as I can. I got to do Teshuva as fast as I can. So that's critical over here, right? You have to know. Continuing inside, Be'ez vehem yesh malchus. Which ones get lashes? Ubi'ez yesh chayove kresos. Which ones have the punishment of kares, to be spiritually cut off? Ubi'ez yesh chayove mises bezdin. Which one would the bezdin give you capital punishment for? Why? L'man yeda godel avono v'hisvadoso. So he should know how great the sin is when he confesses on it. V'yemor b'vchi al asher hichis tamrurim. So he should really have a bitter cry over the fact that he got Hashem provoked in a very terrible way. Ulaman yosliv likana. So it will continue to make the person more humble, realizing, whoa, I didn't realize it did so much damage. Ulaman yivchad mavonosav, and to be afraid from the averis that he has done. Right. So again, we're not. It's important to realize, how much damage really was done, and that's going to be a critical component into doing the tshuva, right? So obviously, the quality of your tshuva is going to be based a lot on the commitment, and the commitment is going to be based on realizing how much damage has to be corrected. Ki averos achamuros, because we know very, very big, strong averos, tshuva toila kaparos, and tshuva only suspends the atonement, the asur memarkim, and suffering is what cleanses it. V'chein kasuv, and so it says in the book of Yirmiyahu, Re'i darkech bagai, see your way in the valley, De'ime asisa, know what you've done. Yisbar ikar hazeh b'shar shlishin, we're going to explain this all in the third gate, and the third gate really goes into going into the degrees of punishments that you get for the averos that you do. So this is a very important step of tshuva, because it's going to help explain to a person afterwards things that happen and in what he needs to do to avoid to get certain suffering. Because again, the rule is, if you transgress a positive mitzvah, if you didn't do a positive mitzvah, that's the lowest form of sin, I mean, not the least form of sin, so tshuva alone helps. Tshuva alone helps. If you didn't do a positive mitzvah, tshuva alone helps. If you transgress a negative aver, which is much worse, because you're doing something God told you not to do, right? And there's some kind, so what's going to happen is, and it carries some type of physical punishment if there'd be a court, say they give you lashes or something like that. So you eat treif. So then tshuva is not enough, you need Yom Kippur. Right? And then there's certain negative things you do that tshuva and Yom Kippur is not going to be enough. You must go through physical suffering. You must go through it. And there's certain things like Chil Hashem, where after all is said and done, even after all three it's not enough, you got to die. So why? Because these extra steps, it's necessary, because the degree of the depth of impurity that has gotten into the person doesn't go out with tshuva anymore. Tshuva is not strong enough for this. So you need other things together with tshuva to help this happen. This explains, one of the Meforshim say, why do we eat a lot on Erev Yom Kippur? Erev Yom Kippur is sort of a holiday. It's sort of a holiday. It has certain halachas a holiday. We don't say tafanan. We eat a festive meal, as it were. So Rabbeinu Yonah, later on, he explains. Because, some Jews, it's a happy day, because some Jews have been waiting all year long for this day. Why? Because for those negative averos that I've transgressed, I know I don't get complete atonement until Yom Kippur comes. Without Yom Kippur, there's something missing in my life. There's a certain degree of sensitivity towards spirituality that is lacking, because I don't have that component of Yom Kippur in my life. So the person's celebrating the opportunity of forgiveness which the day offers for certain averos. And that's one thing. Now you can understand why you should expect to suffer. You analyze the avera. Okay, I did an avera, and this avera comes with suffering. So guess what? Get ready. It's going to come. Don't turn to the rabbi after Yom Kippur and say, I did such a good tshuva. Why is Hashem giving me these problems? Rabbi will say, did you do this avera? Do this avera? This one comes with suffering. That's part of the package. It's part of the package. That's all there is to it. Don't come complaining to God. What do you mean I did tshuva? That's part of the package. You think you don't have avera? It's okay. So I'm sorry. It's not enough. It's not enough. Because obviously, the relationship that your soul and your body has with each other, you identify yourself as a body. You really don't identify yourself as a soul. So let's really see what the body can go through. This suffering, that suffering, this suffering. Is this what you really want to identify with? You've got to identify with something else. Right? Now, if you know that, of course, now a clever person knows, Rabbi Yonah says, there's things you could do proactively to not have to suffer. That way, if you wish to inconvenience yourself in other ways and suffer, quote-unquote suffer, by doing certain mitzvahs that are painful mitzvahs, that can obviate the need for God to bring suffering into your life. So God could say, okay, you did tshuva, but this one comes with a lot of suffering. You got a certain degree of suffering. I think a good illness this year will take care of it. Chas v'shalom, not chas v'shalom, Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. The illness will come, and then, and it'll knock him out, and he'll be in the hospital, and this and that. Mr. Hashem will recover, and he'll be more pure. So I said, wait a minute. Why'd I have to sit back? Why'd I have to sit back and wait for it to happen? Okay, you know what I'm going to decide to do now? I'm going to decide to start learning Gemara. And that's going to be really painful. Ask the guys that are learning Gemara. It is painful. Painful in terms of, it's very hard. But not just learn and fall asleep while the rabbi's giving the class. You know, you're learning it. It's just, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. I don't understand what's going on. The concepts are hard. Remember, Wednesday night, I was teaching the guys. Wednesday night, we're coming to this Gemara, and on Monday we did this piece, and Tuesday we did this piece, and they're getting it. And then Wednesday, 3 new concepts all at the same time, interwoven with each other, based on the other 2 concepts, and I could see they were just broken. Like their minds were exploding, and I'm looking at their face. I knew it had to happen, because there's no other way, because that's as much as I said, okay, I'm going to explain one idea, then I'm going to explain another idea. You got the, and I'm going to explain another idea, and then they're going to put them all together, and then they're going, and it's so painful. Okay guys, now you got to sit and review over and over and over and over till it gets into your heads. This is not enjoyable. Enjoyable is sitting back, relaxing, and reading the National Post, as will be around in another 2 days. Right? That's easy. Putting your head to a Gemara is breaking your mind. Coming to a 6 o'clock class in the morning is painful. Being on time to davening is painful. Doing chesed with people who annoy you is painful. Right? And all those things, and that's what Rabbi Yonah says. These are a lot of the things that can make it that you don't have to suffer. Understand with this muscle. I think it's a good muscle with me. I was having all these back problems for years, on and off, back problems, and I'm going to therapy, and I'm sitting, and the person's therapizing me, right? And I'm sitting there, and whatever they're doing to me, and I have to make these appointments, and listen, and I'm paying money for this on top of this. And then the therapist said, really, if you'd be in better shape, you wouldn't have to go this. So I said, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So I decided I'm going to get into shape, which means I have to go to the club 3 times a week, which is painful for me. I hate it. Okay? It's one of the highest hatreds that I have, is to sit and do this, and to do this, and all these, I hate it. Right? But guess what? Baruch Hashem, in the last 6 years, no backaches. So I got a choice. Do I want to do nothing and get the backaches? Or do I want to go through something that's physically painful, but I don't have any backaches? So I did the aver of not taking care of myself, so now comes the punishment. You could do tshuva all day long. I feel sorry. But you're going to have this degree of suffering. And the suffering is, and the therapy, this will make you better. But why wait for God's therapy? Give your own therapy. Do things that are painfully important for your spiritual development. And that way, so if you read, you did Averis, that means you're going to get Yisurim this year. So do something proactive. Go and give yourself your own self-inflicted Yisurim. At least you're the control of your destiny. I decide when I want to be in pain to go lift weights. So okay, I'll decide how much Gemara I'm going to learn. I'm going to decide how much chesed I'm going to do. I'm going to do all these painful things. And then that will replace, because that gets you more focused spiritually and less focused into the body. So now if you realize you've done these averas that deserve this kind of suffering, so start it on your own. Be proactive. Okay, I'm going to do a mitzvah that's really hard, that's really painful, that really gets me to focus on my neshama and not on my body. And Hashem, I won't have to suffer in any other way. Hashem should give us the prayer to think about this on Shabbos and to make these changes.